Project scope, a lot of project managers would have you believe that project scope is the responsibility of the project manager. Not true. The project scope is the responsibility of the client or of the sponsor or of the key stakeholders. The project manager's responsibility in terms of scope is soliciting that scope from each of those key stakeholders, sponsor or client. The means by which you do that, well, they're many and varied. In a small project, you might hold a single workshop, and that single workshop might be more than enough to be able to get all of those key stakeholders together and to be able to get from them a scope. Now, the important thing when you do things like that is that the meeting is documented and that there is sign-off by those individuals of the scope that they've provided. As a project gets more complex, it's going to be more and more difficult to get all of those stakeholders into one place. And so the project manager is going to have to start working on means by which different key stakeholders can be asked for their particular input. Now, you can do this one of two ways. You can take the age-old approach of starting with a blank sheet of paper. Not very advisable in terms of project management. What you're better off doing is creating a straw man, a draft scope, and then asking your key stakeholders to comment on that draft scope. Where do you get that draft scope from? From your initial contact with those key stakeholders. So it's an iterative process. You start with one view of the scope, you put that into a draft form, you come back to them and have them comment on it. Almost guaranteed they'll comment on that and they'll want to change that scope. But again, at the end of the day, it is mandatory that you get each of them to sign off on it so that there is a degree of compromise, and there must always be compromise because one person's scope will be another person's trash. But nonetheless, at the end of the day, you've got to get all your key stakeholders to sign off on that so that you can go forward.